And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody. Today we're taking a look at the Night Cage here in the Dice Tower. I'm Tom Vasel, and this game is a game in which you're in darkness. Actually, the amount of light you can see here right now is too much. This game, you are trapped in a night cage. You are a prisoner. You're surrounded. There's only enough room in a passageway for one person to crawl through. You have a candle that's melting, and you and your fellow prisoners can communicate with each other, and you have to get out. But there's eyes in there. I'm telling you, as I read through the description of this in the night cage, I was going through going, you awake in the dark, your body cold, your mind blank, you have nothing but your fear, your candle, and a question. How long will your light last? So this is a cooperative game from Smirk and Dagger Games, or Smirk and Laughter. I'm not even sure. It really doesn't fit either one of their categories. A cooperative game in which a bunch of people are trying to get out of the night cage alive. Here's how it plays. In this game, each player is trapped here in the night cage. And this is kind of a perpetual thing. If you leave from one end, you come on the other side. But you are represented by a shrinking candle, which you are holding. You also have a card here. This card will let you know, you'll start with a nerve token. There are different ways to spend nerve tokens. But on your first turn, you put your starting tile on the board. You start in this. Now, hey, it's not so bad. It's a spot with two paths, but look, the cracks. As soon as you move off of this, it's going to turn into a pit. Well, that's no good. But you'll draw tiles, and this will be filled all the way to the top with various tiles depending on how hard the game is. And for each open spot, so I draw a tile and I put one here, and I draw this one. Oh, great, another cracked line, and put it there. Now, my next turn, I get to move one. I think I'm going to move here. Boom, 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 boom. This now becomes a pit, and now I need to put two tiles there. Okay, well, this is the first one. That's great. And you can make dead ends in this game. It's not very helpful. And then, a key. I found the key that we can get to. But here's the thing. Your candle only shines one space away. So, that's gone. And if I went back here later, I might find that there's something very different that's there. It might look like this time. You never are sure. And if I move here, then these are going to both disappear. So I'm probably going to move on to get a key. There's only room for one person on one of these. So you have to be very careful, because let's say I already had a key and someone else, I found another key and someone else needs it. I might have to stay there and keep that area lit, else it will disappear. When a tile disappears, it's out of the game forever. And there's only so many keys in the spot. See, to win the game, we need to find one of these spots here. This is a gate. All the players who are in the game need to get there and have a key at the same time. We do that, we escape. This is the only spot on the board where more than one player can be on that. So you're going to have to be very careful as you move around. Now, there's pits. You don't want to fall into a pit, usually. You can fall into a pit. When you fall into a pit, you fall off the board, and we put you in that row or column. And then next turn, you pick an empty spot, and you'll reveal a tile, and that's the tile you land on. So far, this doesn't sound too bad, except for the fact that things are going to disappear. The problem is, as you go through, there's monsters. If you land on a monster when you're falling, then you take damage, and damage in this game comes in the form of tiles being removed from here, and even worse, your light goes out. When your light goes out, you no longer can see the stuff next to you. You can only see the tile you're on. So you just move and hope that everything's fine. Now, if you ever move next to somebody else who has a lit candle, then you can light yours, because they reach through the gap and let you light your candle. You also have nerve tokens. I mentioned you can spend nerve to do different things. You can spend nerve to move again, to block a monster. Instead of losing 3 tiles, you only lose 2, to run through a monster. So how do monsters work in general? They're going to show up here. The problem with a monster is if a monster ever shows up, let's say there's a monster here. If blue moves off this tile, the monster attacks, hitting everything in a straight line. It's going to miss blue because blue moved, but it's going to hit green. So you have to be very careful. If you're the only person, and maybe you're here and the monster is next to you, and you're like, I'll move here. The monster disappears. But there's a lot of monsters in this thing, and more will show up. So that's pretty much the game. You're going to be moving around. You can always decide not to move. When you don't move, you get a nerve. However, you will also discard a tile, draw it, and if it's a monster, it immediately connects next to you. So if you sit around, the monsters may come and get you. Next to the board, you have a tile discard, and this keeps track. And this shows for 5 prisoners. This shows for 4 prisoners. It's going to show you how many tiles are in the deck, so that you know, for example, if you found all 4 gates and they've disappeared, you can't win the game. Or there's 6 keys involved in here, and there's 12 of these wax eater monsters. You can even make the game harder, where you have keepers who hold the key. You can only get them from behind. That's the only way to get a key. Pit fiends, who turn into pits. Pathless, and then, which is a boss, and omens, which is like the worst boss of all, because the omens, after the second one shows up, there are 2 omen tiles, then this giant monster shows up on the board. That's horrifying, and then turns into this humongous pit. That's craziness. So you can make the game harder if you want to. That's pretty much it. You're going to win together by all getting to that spot and turning the keys. I like having tile racks like this. You know, you don't need this, but it's just nice to have. You build it, fits in the box. I'm not normally a big fan of games that are all black and white, regardless of thematics or not. In this one, it works. When the monster shows up, I don't know. This game is scary. The game feels scary. When I first read the rules, it was scary. And so, you know, the black and white really adds a sense of dread. The little candles are a nice touch, although I was like, who wants to be blue? Their candle's almost gone. But no, I'll pick the red person, please. But yeah, it's just a really cool thing. Everything fits in a box. It's actually a lot more room than you need in the box. I really like the tile discard board, though, because this gives you the very clear thing. This is how much is left in the set. This is how much things are left. Well, we have 6 keys. You can even put the tiles here to keep track of how many you have gotten. And then the keys themselves, you know, this is unnecessary, these little pewter keys. And I'm not a big fan of pewter either, but again, in this game, it works. I like the components here. Probably the best way to play the Night Cage would be to play it in dim lights with everything off. Oh, it has the spooky theme. So let me be really clear here. That is the point of the Night Cage. I would be hesitant to call this a great game. It's a fine game. It's not really bad. But the mechanisms are, you know, interesting. Taking the theme out. Let's take the theme out. The mechanisms are interesting, but it really comes down to, many times, dumb luck. Flipping tiles over, here's the keys, we found it. You flip tiles over, here's monsters, we're toast. So add the theme in, and that definitely increases this. This is a game that the theme really works for. As you're walking around and tiles disappear, as you find the gate, 3 people have keys and 1 person's all the way on the other side of the board, and you have to decide what's the best pathway. Do we sit here and do nothing, or there's a monster, we all run in different directions, and then and that theme works. It's great. If you are not a thematic person, I can tell you straight out, you don't want to play this. But if you like the idea of possibly playing this game in dim lights and working together as you're all afraid of the dark, because that's what this game is about. It's about what's in the dark. Oh man, it brings it to life. Very few board games give me any sort of chill. I play a lot of, you know, cooperative games with monsters and stuff. This one does a pretty decent job, and it does it by simply flipping tiles over. But you sit there and go, I'm afraid. You know? And again, you can communicate and talk, although you can play a variant. There's a variant in the rulebook that you cannot communicate with someone unless you're in like next to each other and can talk to each other. I haven't had the guts to do that yet. That seems awfully difficult. I haven't had the guts even to play with that giant creature we showed you about. It turns into a pit, because the game already is difficult enough. Now, I've beaten it, or we've beaten it, but it was by the skin of our teeth, and again, I feel like it's luck. But Congratulations to Smirk and Dagger for pulling this off. When I first saw the board of this, I believe when I was on Kickstarter, I thought, meh, because in pictures I see black and white, and like I said, I'm not usually a big fan of this black and white, gritty style type game. But here I thought it did really well. This is a game that is moody, atmospheric, puts you in this position where you feel despair. When you win, it's that hope. I finally got out of the cube or the night cage here. Yes. But during the game, you consistently feel like I don't know what's around any corner. Not a lot of strategy. You move around till you find the keys, you get out. And you can discuss and say, we should do this or that in the game, but that's kind of just foiled by whatever the tiles pull. That being said, it's entertaining, and I think there's a lot of people out there who this will become a cult classic of sorts for, one that you play every Halloween time, or that you pull out when it's time to be spooky and you have one of those nights. This is a game that the spookiness is in the theme for sure, but also the mechanisms bring that theme to life in a way that most board games don't. So to that end, while I'd be hesitant, I don't think the Night Cage will make my best games of the year, but most thematic, and it's certainly the scariest game that's come out this year. And if you like cooperative scary games, you'll want to check it out. So that's the Night Cage. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time. Dice Tower Judgment approved.